web presence on one of these devices, you have to think about how it's going to be used, and particularly where it's going to be used. Because one of the key things, of course, about having that little Jesus phone in the palm of your hand is that you can dial up anything at any time when you're out and about, when you're in the toilet, whether you're, wherever you are, it doesn't really matter. So think about where are people going to be accessing this information, how are they going to be using it, what sort of things, information and functions and support am I going to provide? And can I just do it on an M site? And I imagine that for a lot of you, an M site will be quite happily the solution for it. But if you want to take something to the next level, much more sort of deeper engagement and doing things that are a bit more interesting, then an app will be the way to go. It will also obviously be dependent on how much cash you have to spend. Apps can start at anywhere from 5 and end up somewhere north of 60, depending on how much you want to spend. Which brings us very beautifully to the iPad. How many iPad owners in the house? It's not too bad, maybe about 15%, something like that. The iPad dominates the tablet market absolutely 100%, or in the case of Australia, actually 98%. But you can see basically if it's 100 at the top, this is the share of market taken by the iPad across the tablet. Just having a chat with Elliot before, we were reading that what's the name of your tablet, Elliot? The Samsung Galaxy, Apple has put out a sort of, if you like, a restraining order against them making the next version of the tablet because it mirrors the iPad too closely. So whether or not there will actually be another tablet in market that can compete with the iPad is subject to a legal discussion. iPad ownership in Australia, led by 25 to 34-year-olds, which when I first saw that stat, I was a little surprised at. I thought the audience would be a little older than that, but that's interesting. The majority of people use their tablet between 2 and 5 hours a day, which is pretty heavy. And some stats, this was an interesting one. There was a lot of debate about how accurate this was, given that people who published it had something to gain from this information. But what it shows you is the stuff in green is the amount of minutes per day people were using the web on their mobile, and the stuff in blue is the minutes per day that people were using apps on their mobile to access content. And you can see in June 2011, what they're claiming is that more people access content via apps than they do via the web, which is pretty interesting. There's this one here shows you that when people are looking for news, if we pull these two together here on the right-hand side, you can see that more people use apps to access news than they do the web. So there's something about getting information and accessing content through apps that is profoundly more interesting than getting it through the web, and I guess that's something else to consider.